On the 11th of February, 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from a South African prison after 27 years behind bars. He walked out of prison and into negotiations to end apartheid. About 100,000 people squeezed into South Africa's Grand Parade grounds, where he presented his first speech greeting people in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom. This is an established historic fact, one of the greatest stories of human endurance and willpower in recent memory. However, in 2009, a woman named Fiona Broom was talking to a group of people at a conference about how she remembers Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. She even remembers news coverage of the death, as well as a speech from his grieving widow. She found that she was not alone in this experience. In fact, there were several people who remembered similar or the same events. So she launched a website to catalog and discuss this new phenomenon. Hey buddy, my name's Gregory and welcome to Tell Me More, the series where we explore the strange and unexplained. Fiona recently announced that she's moving her websites to a new hosting platform, and a recent search of her most recent websites don't seem to show much about the Mandela Effect at all. And she discusses much more normal paranormal stuff like ghosts and hauntings. Interestingly, in the end of her post, she stated, quote, "I really wish journalists would stop labeling all Mandela Effect memories false memories. From my research, most of these are genuine memories." So is the Mandela Effect real? Are we remembering things from a lost timeline? A history that no longer exists? So what is a false memory, and how are they formed? The hard truth is that our memories are not nearly as good as we'd like to think that they are. We've all played the broken telephone game in elementary school, right? And how often did the phrase come back the same as the original? In my experience, basically never. I think that this shows that over time, an idea can change quite a bit. And our memories work very much the same way. There are countless ways that little embellishments and changes can make their way into our memory, ranging from things that we believed were true to things that we wished were true, and we can even be influenced by the reactions of a person that we're telling a memory to, and this can even have long-term effects on the way that we tell the story in the future. Memory recollection is very much like storytelling, and in storytelling we can use a little bit of artistic license, depending on who's listening. This actually has a name, the audience tuning effect, where we can change the bias of a story depending on pre-existing information that we have about the audience that we're giving the story to. So you can see how over time we can start to create false memories. Even forming memories in the first place as the events are happening is not so cut and dry. While forming a memory, we're literally inscribing information onto meat.
Have you ever forgotten anything?
No.
What color tie am I wearing?
You are wearing a red and white striped club tie in a half Windsor knot.
I'm not wearing a tie at all. No further questions.
Our brain is pretty fallible in general, and if, say, a phrase that we're hearing is kind of clunky or stressful to repeat, we might change that memory into something that's easier to recall, like the famous Forrest Gump quote, "Mama always said, life is like a box of chocolates."
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
Life was like a box of chocolates is grammatically incorrect and harder to remember. So most of us would remember this phrase as being life is like a box of chocolates because that's how we would have said it. Going back to Fiona Broom's memory of Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s, it's kind of a huge stretch to say that that's from retelling the story a few times over the years or mishearing a little phrase or two. But even if Fiona heard a few false reports in the 1980s, how did she make it all the way to the 2000s without realizing that Nelson Mandela got out of prison and became the president of South Africa? That was a really big deal. What could possibly make somebody misremember something like that? Like they never even lived in that reality. It was 2009 when Fiona Broome discovered this bizarre phenomenon with her peers. In a strange case of synchronicity, CERN's Large Hadron Collider began operation in 2008. The previous year. I'm not positive that CERN has anything to do with the Mandela Effect, but after watching their opening ceremony, I'm pretty sure that they're involved with something bizarre. Or at least, I thought that this ceremony had something to do with CERN. Does anybody else remember being told that this had to do with CERN? Because apparently, it has nothing to do with CERN. Is this another Mandela Effect? Or is my memory just terrible? Could this have something to do with the particle physics experiments going on at CERN? Could destroying subatomic particles on a mass scale change reality in some way? The theory is that the world has shifted dimensions, that our consciousness has changed from one reality to another, creating divergent thought amongst the population as people recall different history, logos, and even artwork from their original timeline. I think the highest likelihood is that people are just misremembering things or that they're filling in gaps in their memory in some way. But I have to admit that there are a few of these Mandela effects that have affected me, things that I could swear were completely different. I can't wait to hear what your experiences are in the comments section. Number 1. Sorry, Chills. I had to do it. I love you, buddy. Everyone's familiar with the iconic painting of dogs playing poker. This tacky art piece was featured all over 90s pop culture. However, I was quite shocked to find out that the painting had completely changed. Or at least it was nothing like I remember it. I remember that one of the dogs was wearing a green visor, and that there was a bulldog facing the viewer. Well, there are absolutely no green visors in the painting, and the bulldog has his back to the viewer. Not too crazy, I guess, but I had to be sure, because I knew that I had seen the painting before on the television show Roseanne, so I googled it to double check. But that only made things more complicated, because then I realized that the painting on the show had changed from dogs playing poker to dogs playing pool. What the hell? Number 2. Many people remember Sally Field's Oscar acceptance speech going, quote, "You like me. You really like me." Except that's not at all what she said. It turns out what she actually said was,
"And I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me."
I guess it's possible we all misremembered? But how? This line has been referenced so many times in pop culture, like in The Mask.
You love me! You really love me!
A skeptical argument could be made that the line was a little clunky, and that we all misremembered it because we ourselves wouldn't have said it that way. But I could also argue that the line was so distinct that there was no way that we could have heard it wrong. Number 3. If you had asked me a month ago, "Hey Gregory, who was it that used to surprise people at their homes with giant checks from Publishers Clearinghouse?" I would have answered, Ed McMahon. I remember vividly that it was Ed McMahon, and so do so many other people. Well, it turns out that Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. He had a giant check once, I think, but that was about it. This one really messed with my head because I could not possibly have been more certain that it was him. Ed McMahon was very influential in charities, and he did a telethon every year, but he never handed out giant checks. I could have sworn that Ed McMahon handed out Publishers Clearinghouse checks. I saw it! I saw it! Number 4. I remember the story of the Lindbergh baby. It was all a big mystery. How did they get the baby out of the house? Who did it? Was it the father? Where did the body go? But it turns out that it's not even a mystery at all. I was blown away when it was brought to my attention that not only did they discover the remains, but the killer was convicted of the crime and sentenced to death. What the hell? In my timeline, there was no killer and there was no body. Number 5. I loved E.T. when I was a kid. I must have watched it like a dozen times.
Elliot. E.T. phone home.
I know most of the important lines like the back of my hand. Or at least I thought I did, until I realized that E.T. doesn't use the phrase E.T. phone home in the iconic dress scene. I fell to the floor when I rewatched this scene on YouTube the other day.
E.T. home phone.
Did you hear that? He said E.T. home phone. What? Look at the title of the clip. Look what they called it. E.T. phone home. I guess I could see how this mistake could be made because you'd expect him to say E.T. phone home because that's grammatically correct, but I was convinced that he said E.T. phone home. I'm sure most of you were. Make sure to give this video a like, that helps me out a lot. And if you're new to the channel and you're liking what you see, subscribe and hit the notification bell now so you'd never miss another episode. I upload new content every Thursday. And be sure to check out the Tell Me More playlist for hours of content to keep you entertained and thinking. And now for a little audience participation, let's do a lightning round. I'm going to put 2 images up on the screen, give you a little bit of time to decide what you remember, so you can put your answers in the comment section below. Are you ready? Let's do this. Does the Monopoly Man have a monocle or not? This one's a little bit difficult because so many people remember it both ways. But unless you played the Dutch version of Monopoly Jr., the answer is no. I don't know if this is just a simple false group memory because it seems to come up quite a bit in pop culture. Remember Ace Ventura 2?
And you must be the Monopoly guy.
How about the Ford logo? Does it have a curl on the F? It turns out none of us paid attention because apparently it's always featured a curl. Wow! Then there's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. How does the song go? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood or a beautiful day in this neighborhood? Tick tock, tick tock. Well, if you say it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, you are wrong. Why? That's so clunky. Why would he sing it that way? This is ruining my childhood. What does Pikachu's tail look like? Does he have a black mark on the end or was it just yellow? Well, if you answered black, you are wrong. How is Fruit Loops spelled? Is it F-R-U-I-T or is it F-R-O-O-T? Well, I remember it O-O-T, but so many people remember it being spelled U-I-T, and those people are incorrect. Quick question to Scooby-Doo fans. Does Shaggy have an Adam's apple? Time's running out. And no, he does not. But somehow, several people remember him having a huge bulge on his throat. Gross. How about King Henry VIII? There are claims that he was holding a turkey leg in one of his iconic paintings. Did King Henry ever hold a turkey leg? Well, it turns out that that never happened. Oh, and how about Fruit of the Loom? Does their logo include a horn of plenty, or was it just the fruit? Well, this one might surprise you, because according to all of the examples of the official logo that I could find over the decades, it apparently never featured a horn of plenty. However, Fruit of the Loom includes the horn of plenty as part of the description of the logo. But the logo in the document itself doesn't even have the horn. What the hell is that? Is this some kind of timeline residue? I really hate that this phenomenon is called the Mandela Effect. Of all the affected memories in the list here, I think that that's the dumbest one. Because nobody from South Africa would say that Nelson Mandela was not the president. I mean, would an American say that Bill Clinton was never the president? No. And I think that that kind of proves that this whole thing is bullshit. Sure, maybe this is real. Maybe we're shifting to different dimensions. Maybe the multiverse is collapsing down into fewer and fewer realities as the Large Hadron Collider changes space-time. Some people believe that residue can be left over from forgotten timelines. Little details can remain, hinting that reality used to be different. Like the Fruit of the Loom document. But this residue could also just be evidence of how these false memories formed in the first place. It's easier to go Occam's razor on this one and just assume that this happens because our memory's not so great. I usually chalk this up to the way that my memory works in the first place. But that being said, some of these really stump me. I think we can walk away from this with 2 big takeaways. 1, that our memory's not really that great. And 2, Jim Carrey seems to be at the center of all of this. Tell me what you think. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my vlog channel where I make follow-up videos responding to some of my favorite comments. And also check out my new podcast, Full Metal Tuxedo, where my co-writer and I discuss more of what we talk about on this show, the strange and unexplained. And of course I have to thank my patrons and my channel members for supporting my content. I couldn't do this without you. You're amazing.